The widow of the Filipino dictator Imelda Marcos has gone down in history as the most greedy woman of our time, and legends are woven around her pathological obsession with luxury and wealth. It's said that she used silk toilet paper. A national museum in the Philippines was created from her shoe collection. Once, she spent $2,000 on chewing gum at San Francisco Airport. During another flight, she had the plane turn around in the air because she forgot to buy cheese in Rome. After the death of her husband, President Ferdinand Marcos, around 100 lawsuits were brought against her, and she was sentenced to 18 years in prison for fraud. However, she managed to stay free and even continue her political activities. The enigmatic origin of her childhood and youth, the future First Lady's history, is convoluted and contradictory. Most likely, Imelda herself edited her biography to hide unpleasant moments. For instance, she banned the sale of a book about her written by journalist Carmen Navarro Pedrosa. According to this book, Imelda grew up in extreme poverty. Her biological mother kicked her out of the house, and Imelda slept on packing crates in her relative's garage. However, Imelda vehemently denied this, always emphasizing her noble origins. This is quite significant because if you're always wealthy, there's no need to explain the source of your fortune. According to the official version, Imelda was born in 1929 into a well-off family. Her ancestors were wealthy landowners of Spanish-Filipino descent. Her father was a law professor and an arts patron. Her uncle was a presidential candidate named Orbert, and a cousin was Oldos Lopez. From an early age, Imelda radiated beauty and talent, studying vocal music at the conservatory. At 18, she won a beauty pageant in the capital city, Manila. However, tabloids claimed that the title wasn't earned entirely fairly, but that's beside the point. Marriage to the dictator. According to the official biography, the love between Imelda and Ferdinand sparked at first sight. They married just 11 days after meeting. "This woman helped me achieve everything I could only dream of," Ferdinand usually said. It's believed that Imelda was the one who pushed her spouse into big politics. As a result, in 1965, Ferdinand Marcos became president, promising the citizens, as usual, the moon. However, once Marcos took the presidential seat, all those promises seem to have been forgotten. Initially, the president's appetites were modest. Ferdinand Marcos took kickbacks for government contracts, stashing the money in banks in Liechtenstein. These banks were known for keeping the depositors' secrets. But then, so to speak, the president got a taste for it: the dictatorship of money. On September 23, 1972, Ferdinand Marcos declared a state of emergency in the Philippines. He abolished the constitution, dissolved the parliament, arrested the opposition, took control of the media and the courts. All civil rights and freedoms in the Philippines were temporarily suspended. During the 9-year Achapena regime, 34,000 union activists, teachers, student leaders, writers, and politicians were arrested. Many were subjected to torture and abuse. 3,240 people were killed. 398 disappeared without a trace. Essentially, Marcos wielded absolute power. Since a state of emergency was declared, all of his decrees immediately became law. The president began to subjugate entire companies to himself, resorting to all sorts of tactics without hesitation. He seized the Mill Arc Electric Company, established his own monopoly in the sugar industry, took control of agriculture, transportation companies, and much more. Through his enterprises, he awarded state contracts, exempting them from taxes and simultaneously avoiding the obligation to pay employees the minimum wage. As a result, the earnings of ordinary workers and peasants plummeted to less than $1 per day. Eventually, the president's embezzlement reached such colossal proportions that there was simply nowhere to hide the money. Switzerland was his teacher, and it is known that the Marcoses had 69 accounts with completely laundered funds. Real estate was acquired worldwide. Just in Manhattan alone, the couple owned 4 skyscrapers, not to mention the personal planes, helicopters, and other means of transportation. Among other things, the Marcoses also possessed an enormous art collection consisting of works by Michelangelo, Goya, Picasso, and other masters. Every week, bags of cash were brought to the Marcos residence, and they needed somewhere to put them. As a result, Marcos built a financial empire within the country, a network of banks capable of conducting operations with foreign currencies. While the president engaged in rapid enrichment, his spouse Imelda pursued the exact opposite: extravagant spending of money. Thanks to Imelda Marcos, Philippine English, the term imeldific became popular, describing something tasteless, excessively expensive, and ostentatious. There's also the expression Imelda syndrome, which refers to a passion for excessive extravagance and showcasing wealth. Moreover, Imelda's passion for luxury bordered on psychological pathology. Filipinos like to tell the story of the First Lady's preference for special toilet paper priced at $20 per roll. It was made of fine silk and hand-painted. In 1983, Imelda spent $5 million in just 2 days while shopping in New York stores. "I'm tired of hearing reproaches. $1 million here, $1 million there, as if $1 million is nothing," Imelda once said. It is known that the First Lady ordered sand to be brought from Australia to the beach of a new Philippine resort. How much this cost the country's budget remains undisclosed. The First Lady would host luxurious parties several times a week where Philippine socialites would flaunt their outfits. Local designers were always overwhelmed with work, barely able to sew new dresses in time. Imelda would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on clothing. Dresses, blouses, and suits were imported for her from France and Italy. She would often fly to Europe for shopping herself. The true grandeur of the president's spouse was demonstrated during her youngest daughter's wedding. A hotel and a runway were specially constructed for the ceremony. Dozens of houses were renovated for the newlyweds' procession. Carriages were ordered from Austria, and horses were brought from Morocco. Imelda had a special passion for jewelry. Her most cherished piece was a tiara with 25 pearls framed by diamonds, which once belonged to the family of Emperor Nicholas II. The tiara cost 7 stars and $4 million. As local media later reported, by selling just one such precious item, 4,000 Filipino teenagers could have attended university. However, Imelda Marcos's most cherished pride was her lavish collection of shoes, which numbered over 3,000 pairs. Among them were quite luxurious examples adorned with gold and precious stones. Incidentally, at that time, 40% of Filipinos did not have shoes at all and went barefoot. From just a third of this collection, Filipinos established the National Shoe Museum. But where did the remaining 2,000 pairs go? Imelda Marcos took them with her when the presidential couple fled to the United States. Exile. The dictator's rule lasted for a long 30 years, but everything eventually comes to an end. In 1986, Filipino opposition forces surrounded the palace and were ready to tear apart the dictator. However, Imelda Marcos managed to escape on a private plane. They landed in Hawaii. An American customs officer recalls this monumental event. It seemed as if they had taken almost the entire Philippine budget with them. Packed into 23 wooden crates were expensive belongings, 12 huge suitcases and bags, hundreds of boxes of clothing from various brands, and over 400 pieces of jewelry, including 70 pairs of cufflinks adorned with precious stones. A statuette of the infant Jesus made of ivory with a diamond necklace and a silver mantle. One of the boxes contained a gift from First Lady Imelda to her husband. 24 gold bars, each with a touching inscription, "For my husband on our 24th wedding anniversary." Filling out the customs declaration took Marcos 23 sheets. To customs officials, this seemed incredible, but later it was revealed that this was just 1/600th of the couple's possessions. On their person, the couple had cash for small expenses, 27 million Philippine pesos, which was equivalent to $15 million at the prevailing exchange rate. At that time, nearly half of the Philippine population lived on less than $2 per day, the end of the Marcos Empire. At the same time, a true battle was unfolding in Manila against the escaped swindlers, against the head of state and his accomplices. Hundreds of criminal cases were initiated, but they all fell apart on the other side. The world's best lawyers were at work, always finding loopholes in the law. In 1989, President Marcos suffered kidney failure and died in the dock. It turned out that Imelda Marcos had a record number of cases against her, over 100, but they all crumbled. The lawyers did their job, and in court, Imelda shed tears. claiming she was innocent, just a poor widow who was unaware of her husband's affairs. In 1993, Imelda Marcos was finally sentenced to 18 years in prison. However, she appealed, and the judge found inaccuracies in the wording, leading to the collapse of the charges. To be fair, it should be noted that a portion of the money was eventually recovered. Precious items and luxury goods were auctioned off, returning to the state in the late 1990s. Imelda Marcos continued her involvement in politics. She was repeatedly elected to Congress, serving in the House of Representatives. Interestingly, the former First Lady has quite a number of supporters and admirers who believe she is innocent of any fraud and, on the contrary, made a significant contribution to the cultural development of the Philippines. And that's all for today. This video was prepared by Hustler. Subscribe to the channel for new encounters.